Here is the question. One of my students uses a fidget toy all the time, and while it does seem to help, I've had other staff members say it's just a distraction. I'm not sure whether to let her keep using it or if it's doing more harm than good. Do fidgets really help kids focus, or are they just a crutch? Wow, great question. Let me first say, if the fidget itself is distracting, if it's loud or clicking or making other students look over, it's a distraction and you can find another fidget. Or if it's distracting to the child, if the child has completely tuned out whatever it is that they're supposed to be working on and it has become more of a toy than a fidget, then it might be time to find a different fidget. But for the most part, fidget toys are fantastic. As long as they're not super distracting to the child or to other children or to you in the classroom, they can be a really great thing. Let me explain kind of the mechanics of how a fidget toy actually works. There's lots of chemicals in the brain and lots of different pieces of the brain all trying to work together. But the main chemical that fidget toys help with is a chemical called dopamine. Dopamine, there have even been books recently written about dopamine and how it affects everything in our lives. And at least once a week, I have a conversation with a parent about a problem that their child is showing. And really, it's a dopamine problem. It's their child is seeking dopamine or not getting enough dopamine or whatever it might be. It all comes back to this dopamine chemical. Dopamine is the reward chemical in your brain. So if you do something and you feel good about it, it's dopamine, that chemical that's being released, that helps you feel good about it. If you do something and you feel accomplished, dopamine is the chemical that has gone into your brain that has helped you feel accomplished about it. Well, children's brains and adults' brains too, but adults' brains have a lot of times figured out how to not constantly be searching for dopamine. Children's brains are constantly searching for dopamine, and they're searching for dopamine in all of their senses and in all of the ways that they possibly can. So they're searching for dopamine with their eyes and with their ears and with their nose and with their mouth. They put things in their mouth with their hands and they're playing with things. They're looking for things that will feel and be rewarding to all of those different senses. A fidget toy helps give some of that dopamine where it's lacking. If a child is having to sit still and focus, it's hard for them to be receiving dopamine through tactile means, through touch, or through movement. And so if they're able to spin a fidget spinner, or if they're able to play with a fidget cube, or they're able to play with any type of fidget, what that does is it tells that part of their brain they don't need to continue searching for dopamine elsewhere. They don't need to get up and walk around and be touching everything in the room. They can just keep spinning their fidget because that is very rewarding. It's a very rewarding movement to keep doing this. One of the reasons that kids and adults have so much trouble getting off of electronics like tablets and phones is because those things flood our brains with dopamine. They give us an overwhelming amount of dopamine to our brains. When you are constantly scrolling and there's constant just, oh, that was funny. Oh, wow, look at that dog. Oh, wow, look at that recipe. Ooh, ooh, ooh. It's flooding our brains with this reward chemical. And then you put it down and it's almost like you feel this droop from putting down your electronic device. It's because you've been flooded with dopamine and then no dopamine all at once. So, fidget toys can help give kids that dopamine so they don't have to search for it in other places. Unfortunately, the best fidget is chewing gum. Yes, chewing gum. It has a touch to it. It has movement to it. It has smell to it. It has taste to it. And we have told kids they cannot chew gum, even though if they could chew gum, they would be able to stay in control of themselves much, much better. I advocate all the time to begin letting kids chew gum again. And people say, oh, well, they stick it under the desk. Well, guess what? If they stick it under the desk, they don't get to chew gum for a period of time, then they can earn back the gum. But we can't just take it away and expect kids to also know how to control themselves in the future. I advocate that we give gum back to kids because it's a great fidget that helps them be able to stay focused, especially with their eyes, because that's the one thing that gum does not do. It does not give any sensory perception to the eyes, to the, I forgot the name of that, to sight. It doesn't give dopamine to sight. So kids can sit and watch something and be chewing, and yes, they got to keep it down, all that, but they can sit and they can be chewing the gum and looking at that thing. Anyway, that was a separate conversation. Fidgets can be great. Make sure they're not too distracting, and you don't want it to be a beach ball or a basketball where the child is dribbling it and it's making lots of noise and distracting everyone else in the class, and it's requiring too much focus from them. You want it to be something that can be fidgeted with, for lack of a better term, where they can be quiet with it and they get that little movement and that little tactile dopamine, and they're able to not search for the dopamine there so that they can stay focused on the task at hand. Fidgets can be great. Just make sure you ensure that the fidgets chosen are not super distracting for the child, for other children in the room, or for you. And you can find all dozens, if not hundreds, of different types of fidgets online that you can try out. There are cheap ones, there's expensive ones, there's some that you can make at home, there's some that you can make in the classroom. You could even do a class project where everyone in the class makes this fidget together, whatever it might be. But they really can be helpful to plug some of those dopamine, plug some of those dopamine receptors so that a child doesn't feel like they have to search for dopamine. It's being given, it's being rewarded right then as they're going.